Everyone, I'm sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues going on, and I was not able to use my usual camera for some reason. But here we are, one more night at the Living Well program. Pastor Brad could not be with us tonight, but he wants you to know he's thinking of you, and he wants us to carry on the conversation with the Living Well program. So tonight, I want to please ask you to share with me if you're joining from somewhere, if you're watching us, please just let me know. I'll try to connect and see if you're saying hello or something, so you can ask me questions, or you can just say where you are and talk to me. I want this to be truly a conversation more than a one-way thing, but I need you for that. So I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna wait for you to come on live and just watch what's going on. Where is everybody watching from? I know we have people from El Salvador watching, and maybe some people in Nebraska are watching, so we'll see. Tonight, I want to talk about a very special topic. It's one that is very close to my heart, and it's related to two biggest passions in my life. One of them is mental health, of course. You know my testimony, or you might have heard a little bit of my journey with bipolar disorder. But the other passion I have is teenagers. And well, my husband and I have been youth pastors for over 20 years now. And so being youth pastors, we have been becoming aware and noticing a lot of patterns in this generation that we are currently serving. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about this topic, but mind you, you might be thinking, okay, I'm not a teenager, so this is not gonna have anything to do with me, but no, please stay tuned. It does have to do something with, it will have to do something with you, because what I'm gonna talk about is affecting not only teenagers, it's affecting all of us, and we might not even be aware of it. So we are gonna talk about the need about this generation and the patterns that they're going through. And the need is greater than ever. We're going to call this generation Generation Z, or iGen, after internet generation. And it refers to people born during 1995 and after that. And they are known to be, and Josh McDowell and Sean McDowell, who are great youth pastors, say that this generation is the loneliest ever. There's an epidemic of depression, self-harm, and suicide going on in the younger generations, and we just cannot keep ignoring this. We all know the symptoms: lack of motivation, changes in sleep and appetite, or more isolation, crying without an apparent motive, or loss of energy, hopelessness, the emptiness, the toxic thinking, loss of interest in life, or persistent feeling of sadness, low self-esteem. I think we are all familiar with the basic symptoms of depression. But one of the things we have to know, we have to be doing, is just be aware of the characteristics of this generation, know them, to actually get to know them. And this might be your kids, this might be your grandchildren, or this might be the children or the teenagers at your church, or this might be you that are falling in some of the things that are affecting them. They're also affecting us as adults. So there's a different generation. It's more than before. They're different in the way they spend time. They're different in how they have, how they behave, in how they have their attitudes towards religion and towards politics and towards sex. They are just a different generation in the way they socialize and in the way, for example, that they have no patience towards inequalities, be it of gender or race or sex. And we are on the bridge or almost facing the worst mental health crisis in decades, with the rates of suicide and depression skyrocketing from 2011. So it's been 11 years basically where this has been getting worse and worse and worse. But one of the things that is affecting this generation and that I was mentioning also affects us is how digital we are. An estimate says that a teenager checks their phone at least 80 times a day. 89% of them have and own a cell phone by the time they're 13 years old. And they spend anywhere between 5 to 6 hours a day in social media, texting, just navigating on the internet and video games, etc. 5 to 6 hours per day. This is a generation, and it might be that happens to you too. We sleep with the phones under our pillows. Has it happened to you? It's really dangerous. I know there's been even accidents happen when people have fallen asleep with their cell phones under their pillows and they're charging. It's so dangerous. And it's the first thing you look at in the morning, is the last thing you look at when you go to sleep. And it's impossible to believe that those habits are not affecting our mental health. Okay, they are affecting our mental health. We are having, and this generation is having less personal interaction and more electronic communication every day more. And why does it matter? Well, there's evidence that shows that the more time on the screen that we spend, the less level of happiness, the less level of satisfaction, the less level of mental health, and the higher the level of loneliness. And you might be thinking, well, why loneliness? I'm talking to people through the chat. I'm talking to people through the messenger. But hey, that can never substitute face-to-face interaction. It just can't. And I am not against technology. We wouldn't be able to be connecting right now with you if it wasn't for technology. You know, I wouldn't have even come across Fresh Hope if it wasn't because they had an online group. It's not that I'm against technology, but perhaps the key word would be moderation. A study suggests that 2 hours per day of screen time, it's about enough. If you go over 2 hours per day, then you are at risk of depression and just suffering other negative impacts of screen time. So there's a personality psychologist, and she's a doctor, and her name is John Twenge, and she's been researching for over 25 years the differences of every generation. And one of the studies that she follows, it's called Monitoring the Future. And it's very interesting how it's super evidence. There's a lot of evidence. We cannot deny the connection between the internet and the social media and the levels of, just depression and anxiety and just low self-esteem that our kids are going through. So there was a research where teenagers were interviewed, and more of them agreed to the fact that their life was meaningless the future was hopeless. More of them agreed with the sentence that says, I cannot do anything right. I feel like life is not useful. And more of them are disagreeing with the sentence that says, I enjoy life and it feels good to be alive. And this connection has been made on the more screen time, the more chances of depression. And we cannot measure this. This is not an index of clinical depression, of course, that can only be diagnosed by a professional, but it does measure the classical symptoms of depression, hopelessness, lack of meaning, loss of interest in life. So I want you to think for just a little bit, how are you doing with this? How much screen time are you spending or have you been spending lately? Maybe you're not a member of Generation Z or of, this current generation of teenagers and the youth we're seeing now, but we do have, our own addictions, or if you can call it that, or our own habits where we spend more time than we should with our screens and our social media and the like. So it's been proven that the more screen time, the higher the risk of depression. And the more sports and church and doing homework, the less the risk of depression. Let's just think about it for a while. When they're in the cyber world, they are facing cyberbullying, many of them. We currently have over 100 kids in our youth group here at church in El Salvador. And many of them testified that, they have received ugly comments on the internet. Why are you alive? Why don't you just, end it all? And just some very horrible things that go on in the cyber world. And they're constantly looking at standards that they think they'll never reach, so they feel inadequate, and they suffer from low self-esteem, a poor body image, not to mention how sleep deprived we all get when we are on our phones till late at night and we don't rest. And we all know how bad the impact of sleep deprivation is on our mental health. And so our teenagers are also under other influences. For instance, they're being influenced by Asian cultures and their emo urban culture that is, of course, just making it seem like it's fun to be depressed, or like it's fashion to be depressed and to be, have suicidal thoughts and self-harm, and all of these tendencies are all over the internet. We must be careful. We must teach them to filter out the content that they consume. I read that there's an agency in the United States that is researching the impact of TikTok, especially over teenagers, because they've had a significant rise in depression ever since this TikTok came to the hands of our teenagers. But you know what? We want to focus on the hope. This is a reality we can't deny. Social media is part of our lives now. Technology is, the internet is, and it has a lot of advantages. However, we must be aware that if not used wisely, it can and it will impact negatively our mental health. These teenagers, they're made in the image of God. They have eternity in their hearts, the Bible tells us. They love to hear stories just like we do. They want to belong. They want their lives to have meaning, and they want to have relationships with meaning. Relationships with real people face to face, relationships with their parents, relationships with us. So what can we do? if you're a parent or a grandparent, I would encourage you to spend more time talking to your kids face to face and exploring with your spouse some limits that you can talk to them about, the time limits and the time they spend in the social media or in the screens, different screens. Increase relationships face to face and decrease a little bit on just the technology connections, and increase exercise, sun, church, and decrease screen time. That is a wise, movement we can do when we hear all the statistics and all the studies. And because of the time, here I haven't even gone deeper into, the statistics, but they are very impactful. They are a reality that we're facing, and they're too much technology and 5 to 6 hours per day doing social media and video games and just exploring the internet is changing the way the brains work. And we were made for social interaction. We were made for relationships, firstly with God, and secondly with our family and friends. And so it's obvious that it's going to impact us. So we at Fresh Hope are looking into forming some special. We have Fresh Hope group for teens, but we want to go up a notch on that. We want to be talking to some people to start more groups on especially for teens. I had a wonderful connection yesterday with a teenager that's willing to start a group for his peers, and he's a godsend. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you more later, of course, when we establish something else with him and his pastor. But it's looking good. We want to be a part of the solution, and we know that we're called to bring hope, and that is why we are talking about these topics. And we need to just be open and honest about what is affecting and what the reality is. And now with the pandemic and all, our kids ended up being at home with very speedy internet, doing their classes from home, many times with no parents supervising, because we've been having to work. And so it's just been getting really difficult for us to fight against the decreased face-to-face relationships and increased internet relationships, if we can call them that, for a lack of a better phrase. So, okay, I want you to know I'm here. I want you to know you can contact us if you have ideas, if you want to be a part of this new strengthened Fresh Hope for Teens movement. Please, by all means, send me an email or leave me a message under this live, and I'll be glad, I'll be more than glad to connect with you. Also, why don't you take a minute and examine your patterns of time with social media? And hello, Maria Elena, I can see you're commenting. You're a faithful follower of the Living Well program. Thank you for being here. Maria Elena from El Salvador is with us. And if anybody else is watching, I would love for you, please, to say hello. But as I was saying, before we wrap it up, how can you take care of your mental health, knowing now that social media and the internet habits affect our mental health so badly? How can you improve your face-to-face, interactions and decrease on your chat and videos and time that you spend gaming? What can you do about you? Why don't you set up a rule that this cell phone is not going to be the first thing you look at when you wake up? that's a very concrete decision you can make. Or it's not going to be the last thing you look at before you go to bed. You're not going to be losing sleep over the phone anymore. Just take one small decision after watching this show and let us know. Share in the comments. I'll be glad to hear if you're watching this in a group setting. Share with your peers what that decision is going to look like and what you're going to do. Okay? So for a healthier home, put limits on, technology. I am watching if there are any more comments or people saying hello. Let's see. I'm watching here. Well, yeah, Maria Elena, you're just like the faithful watcher. Thank you. Thank you, Maria Elena. And thank you everyone else that joined us. I really want to give a minute or two in case you want to say something or share something. We're in no rush. So we really do need to make some decisions, right? Okay, I see no more comments coming through. So I'll just wrap it up. Thank you for watching. No matter if you see it live or you watch it later, we're glad you're here. Thank you. Bye-bye.